crumbs.
Oh. My spot was where the speakers were. There's no crumbs. Okay.
I was wondering when they're having that speech was how for the fathers to get the children. I was wondering how the speech went for the children to get the fathers.
Okay. Today we're going to start the top of Mem Gimel. I remember if I posted the other one. I think I posted yesterday. Okay. I think Hashem that's able to learn Torah every day. And in this list of our learning, we should have Beis Hamikdash immediately. Learning Lili Nishmas, Zahav Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin, also Netanel Zev and Metzia. Okay. So the Mishnah starts like this. Mafkin Ma'is Eitzel Shulchani. Someone deposits money with the banker. So the banker is now the watchman. If the money is tied up, then the rule is then the banker is not allowed to use them for his own things, for maybe lending money or whatever the banker would do with them. But obviously it's just there as a deposit. And if that's the case, if it's just a deposit money, if it's just a deposit, then it's a regular shemachinam. That's what it seems, right? So the fikachim therefore, if it gets lost, oh, thank you. He won't be responsible for those damages because the shemachinam is exempt, and a non-paid watchman is exempt for if it gets stolen or lost. Okay, that's the first rule here. Mutarin. Let's say it was untied. First case of the Mishnah was if the money's tied up. Second case of the Mishnah is if the money's untied. Page 43. Then the rule is if it's untied, if he just gives it to the banker to watch for him, then the banker is allowed to use this money. He is allowed to use it. And therefore, if it gets lost, and then he's going to be responsible for them. Now, we're going to have to figure out what does it mean if it gets lost, because if he's allowed to use it, it's not only if it gets lost. If it's allowed to use it, then he becomes a borrower, and a borrower is chayiv even if it's einus. Here we're just saying if it gets lost.
It says here the money's bound. What does that mean?
That means it's tied up in a cloth. Just watch this for me.
Okay.
But if it's untied, then the halach is different.
In that case, is the money considered like wasted? Like loan?
What do you mean wasted?
The presumed status of the money is that it was used. It's a loan.
Oh, milvad lahitza, not wasted, that it's spent. Yeah. Spent is not wasted. So that's a discussion over here that we'll have to see in the Gemara. But meanwhile, it's just saying that if it gets lost, he's going to be chayiv b'chiyusim because the banker was allowed to use it. Okay, Eitzel balabayas. Let's say he doesn't give it to a banker; he gives it to a regular person, homeowner. Bein sur and bein mutar and leishtamshem. Then he's not allowed to use it no matter what, even if it's untied. Sure, if it's tied, he's not allowed to use it. Even a banker wasn't allowed to. And over here, a balabayas, even if it's untied, he's not allowed to use it. Therefore, it gets lost. He's not responsible if it gets lost because he's a shomer chinam. Chenveni. What about a storekeeper? Is a storekeeper more like a homeowner or like a banker? Well, Reb Meir says kabalabayas to Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says no. A storekeeper is chenveni kishulchani. He's like a banker. Storekeeper is like a banker. Okay. The Gemara doesn't really get into that last point, but okay. The Gemara asks right away, Mishum detzurin la yishtamish b'hem. How are we getting this from? The fact that money is tied up, that means that he's not allowed to use it. Money gets tied, is not tied up as in tied up in stocks or something. Money is just handled they put it in a little bag, they tie it up. That does not mean that you want the person to use it and give it back to you. What's the significance of that? Ravasi says, Rav Yehuda, in the name of Rav Yehuda, B'tzrudin v'chasumin shanu. No, this was like in a sealed envelope. It's sealed. Okay, that's a different story. If it's sealed, then you can already understand that you just want someone to watch it because it's sealed. Rav Mari Amar B'kesher Meshuna. Rav Mari says it's talking about that it was a special type of knot, that's what it was tied, and therefore it was understood that it shouldn't be opened up. However, the Gemara says, Ikadamri, there are those that say this slightly different. Rav Mari actually had a question about this. Kesher Meshuna Mai. What would be if it was in this interesting type of knot? So I'm not sure how Rav Mari would learn the Mishnah. I guess he would learn the Mishnah. We're talking about Tzrurim v'chas. The Mishnah would be talking about Tzrurim v'chasumim, where it's sealed. But what about if it's just a knot? So then that's Rav Mari's question, and the Gemara doesn't answer that. Teku, where it says that would be we'd have to leave that as a question if you would be allowed to use it. The banker's allowed to use that money.
Says that even if it was tied up, like that wouldn't be sufficient. You wouldn't need to state that you would have to tell the money changer that
I don't want you to use it, right? Here we're talking about where he doesn't say anything. Question is, without him saying anything, what's the assumed intention, right? Right. B'tarin, if it's untied, yishtamish b'hem, then he's allowed to use them. And the Mishnah went on to say that he's also responsible for the loss since he was allowed to use that money. So then he's not just a regular shemer chinim, he goes up a level. Amar Rav Huna v'afilu nansu. Rav Huna says, not only does it go up one level, it goes up 2 levels. He doesn't become a shemer sachar because he's allowed to use it. He becomes a shayel, becomes a borrower. You're allowed to use the money, then you're a borrower. And then he's responsible not only for if it's lost, but he's responsible even if it was unpreventable circumstances, which is einus. The Gemara asks on Rav Huna avdu katani, but the Mishnah didn't say einus. The Mishnah said lost. So the Gemara answers Kidder Rabba. Following this statement that Rabba made regarding something else, Amar Rabba nignavu b'listim mezuyim avdu shetavas finas bayam. That type of loss was the type of loss that was unpreventable circumstances, which is that it was on a boat that sunk at sea, which is type of loss which is unpreventable. That's an einus type of loss. Okay. Over there, when it said nignavu ayavdu, and it was talking about an einus over there, the nignavu was talking about it was an armed robber, and the einus was and the lost was that it sunk at sea. Rav Nachman argues with Rav Huna. He says nen sulai, not if it was an unpreventable circumstance. He's only going to be responsible if it got lost. Unpreventable circumstance, that is going to be exempt. Amalei Ravel or Rav Nachman, so Rav says to Rav Nachman, l'didoch damit nen sulai. According to you, that you say that this banker that's using the money is exempt from if it's lost, if it's not lost, if it's an einus, if it's lost he's chayav, if it's an einus, then if it's an unpreventable circumstance he's exempt. Alma layav. Obviously, you don't consider him a borrower. If he's not a borrower, shemer sacher nami layavi, then why is he a shemer sacher? Why is he even chayav for if it gets lost? The whole reason.
This Mishnah we don't even practice. Like we have banks all the time.
Are they responsible for using the money? Positive.
Yeah, of course.
They are responsible. So we do follow this. We're just saying that
But I mean,
this
they just don't even use it.
No, this would be comparable to in the bank. They have safe deposit boxes, and they also have the bank. If you put it in the safe deposit box, then you don't want them to use it. Yeah. If you put it in the, it's not necessarily so.
No,
it's not allowed.
People do it all the time, but they don't.
They don't. Oh, it's not. You're not allowed to put cash in. And, Okay, but this would be comparable. Forget about that rule. Then you're not allowed to be comparable to if they gave it to him as a safe deposit. So then he's not supposed to use it. And if they give it to him just as a deposit, and then he can use it. So when he can use it, now we're discussing over here. If he can use it, if it's an inus, if the money gets lost by inus, so then is he responsible? It's machlekes Rav Huna and Rav Nachman. The question is, Rav doesn't understand. He says, I don't understand. If you don't consider him a shayel, then why does he become a shemer sacher? See, the idea here is that the reason why his status is going up is because he's allowed to use the money. That usage of it makes him into a borrower. So why, how do you get this middle over here that he's only chayev if it's lost, but not if it's an inus? Amar lei, Rav Nachman responds to Rava, no. He says he is a shemer sacher. The hayol v'nene mahana. He definitely has enjoyment. He definitely has benefits. That's the word. Definitely has benefits from this money. But he now with that intention, with that benefit, the misramele svina dispay ravcha. See what we're talking about over here is that what Rav Nachman's statement is that if he spent the money, then he for sure is a borrower. Rav Nachman's statement is if he didn't spend the money yet, he just gave it to him to deposit, and now he didn't spend it yet. What is his status before he spends it? Is his status a shayel, that he's a borrower? He didn't spend it yet. When a regular person borrows money, even if he doesn't invest it yet or whatever he wanted to do with it, he's already responsible for any unpreventable circumstances. In this case, though, when it was given to him to watch and he's allowed to spend it, so Reb Nachman says that he's not considered a borrower yet. He would only be a borrower if he actually spent it. So he says, oh, if he's not a borrower, then maybe he should only be a shemer chinam. Rava's question was, he's just a watchman. Why is he chayav for einus? He says, no. He's a shemer sacher, even though he didn't spend the money yet. He's not a borrower, but he's also not a shemer chinam. Why? He says, Bahiyana, with this benefit, the imisramile is vina dispei ravcha, that he knows that he's able to, if he comes across an item that he can make a profit off of, he could buy it with this money, just to have that extra money around to be able to, that sort of credit that he's able to use that's already like a payment. That's a payment for watching. He's not a shemer chinam anymore. He's considered a shemer sacher because he's getting a benefit for watching this money, even though he didn't use it yet. But because he has the ability to use it, that's considered a payment. And so he's chayav for aveda, geneva aveda, but he's exempt from einus until he actually borrows the money directly, or just he starts to spend it. Okay. Was the story with the Chazan. He borrowed money from the Rav. The Chazan came for Yom Kippur to daven for the Amid. So he asked the Rav, "Can I borrow $10,000?" So he said, "I'll give it back right after Yom Kippur." So he says, "What are you gonna? He says, "When I have $10,000 in my pocket, I daven much different." This is,
really? That's a joke.
Okay. So Esvei Rav Nachman Rav Huna. Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, oh, this is interesting because Rav Huna was the one that said Nensu. Rav Nachman says that only by Aveda. Now they're having a conversation. Before it was Rava with Rav Nachman. Now it's Rav Nachman himself asking to Rav Huna. Okay, the case looks exactly like the Mishnah, but the only thing is there's one detail here that could throw us off. It's a detail is that we're dealing with someone that's a Gizbar. He's the trustee of the temple. So now what happens with now is if this trustee of the temple funds, yeah, is the treasurer of the temple funds, he gives money to a banker to watch. It turns out that the money that he gave was not his own money. He thought it was his own money, but it turned out that it was the money from the wrong wallet. It was from the temple funds wallet. So he gave him the wrong money. If it was tied up, so exactly like it says in our Mishnah, that the banker should not be using it because it's tied up. And therefore, if he does use it, take a look at this. See, there's one rule by Me'ila, which is using temple property for personal use. It's one rule by Me'ila that doesn't apply to the rest of the Torah. It's a very unique halacha. That is that we say shliach yesh shliach ledvar avera. That if the messenger commits a sin, usually we say that that's the sin of the messenger, but here we say it's the sin of the sender. Okay, so here the treasurer of the temple funds gives money to someone else to spend. If he spends it, that sin goes back to the sender, to the one that sent. It's a special halacha that applies to this, and there was one other thing that it applied to. Remember, we had it before. Yeah, we had it before. And in Babakama, I think. Anyway, so maybe, yeah.
If a Shomer Sacher has money and he's getting paid for it, holding the money, is this a way of avoiding ribbit?
No, a Shomer Sacher would be the borrower.
If he's getting paid.
Yeah, but that would be like, I lend you $1,100, but you can keep the 100 and just pay me back 1,000. It's the opposite of ribbit.
He's getting hana because he's getting hana just because he has it.
Right.
And that's not a ribbit issue.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
It's negative
Ribbit,
interest.
it's negative interest. The ribbis would be if the owner of the money would be getting paid while he doesn't have the money. That would be ribbis.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, because the Gizbar did not give permission for the shulchani, for the banker to spend the money. So then when the banker does spend the money, it's not considered that he's a shliach because he was never allowed to do that. So therefore, who's the one that violates the rules of Me'ila is the shulchani, is the banker, not the treasurer of the temple. However, the opposite case, if the money was untied, then yishtamish bem, then the banker is allowed to use that money. Therefore, if he spends the money, Mala Gizbar, then he doesn't violate the rules of Me'ila, but the sender, the Mishaleach, the one that gave him the money, he's the one that violates it, which that was the temple treasurer. Okay, this is all. We didn't get into the question yet. That was just a case. Comes along Rav Nachman and asks Rav Huna.
On 18 was Kedushin.
I was in Kedushin. Yeah, that's right. It was in Kedushin 40 something. Not 18. Kedushin 42 and 43. Very good.
What was that? What was the scenario with that?
Yeah, we're talking about the case of Me'ila. Over there, we were talking about Shliach.
Right.
This is that's about
What was
using.
the exception?
Oh, it doesn't say over here what the other exception was. Oh, you want me to see? Let's see. Me'ila v'shlichas yad. Sounds like Shlichus Yad would be another one. It's hyperlinked. It sends you. You can click on that to go to condition. Okay. Now he's about to state his question. Amrit, and Reb Nachman says to Rav Huna, and if you say afilun ensu, if you say that he's really considered a borrower, he's not considered a shomer, he's considered a borrower. That's why he's going to be chayiv even for Reinus. My area haitzi. Why should he violate the laws of Me'ila only when he spends it? We said over here that if it was untied and then the banker spends the money, so then the prohibition of Me'ila goes back on the one that gave him the money, which is the treasurer. Why should we say that? Why should we say that he only violates that when he spends the money? Even if he doesn't spend the money. You see, we're talking about money being transferred out of temple funds. So if someone would take temple funds and give it to and lend it to someone, that lending of it would already be transferred out of the temple domain. So the violation of Me'ila would take place right then. If he would give it to someone to watch, it's still in the temple status, it's still in the temple domain. But once you lend it to someone, then it's considered that it's left the temple domain. So when the violation of Me'ila of using temple funds for something else, for personal use, is right when it leaves the temple domain. So if I say, according to Rav Huna, if I say that the person is responsible even for unpreventable circumstance, then he becomes a borrower. That means that he's already a borrower from the beginning. That means it's already left the temple fund. So why does that have to say haitzi? If he spends it, that's when it causes a violation. Just by giving it to him, it's already the violation because he's already a borrower from then. Amalei. So Rav Huna responds to it. Then haitzi. I know the Mishnah said if he spends it, but he actually violated Me'ila from the right away, from the beginning. So why do you say haitzi if you don't mean it? Why do you say if he spends it if you don't mean he spends it? So I did Tani Reisha haitzi, since in the first case of the Mishnah where he gives him the money and he basically tells him that he can't spend it because he ties it up. So over there, if the guy goes ahead and spends it, so the prohibition of Me'ila doesn't go back on the treasurer; it stays with the banker. So over there, if it says haitzi, if he spends it, it says loimal. The gizbar wasn't mal, didn't have the violation of Me'ila. So over here it says haitzi, he was mal. If he spends it, he was mal, but doesn't mean haitzi is mal. It means automatically right away when he gets it, he's already mal. So Tana Sefer Nami haitzi was just trying to make it the case symmetrical, but it didn't need to say that. It even violated Me'ila before that. Okay. Next Mishnah says, Ashleach Yad B'Pikadon. If someone misappropriates, that's the word that they use, misappropriates the deposit item that was given to him to watch. So, and then it probably gets ruined or lost or something. So Beishama Yomrim Yilka B'Chasav Yaser. He's going to get hit with a decrease or an increase. You can have different ways of explaining that in the Gemara. So, but whatever the case is, it means that he's going to have to pay more than what it was. He's going to have to pay more than the lower possible price. We'll see. Obviously, if the item is still intact, all he has to do is return the item. We're not talking about the item is intact. We're talking about when the item is not intact. Now he's going to have to pay for the item. He's going to have to pay a larger price. No, because the item itself has different prices on it, different ways of, and maybe it started originally cost more, at the end it cost more. We'll see in the Gemara what's going on.
Say 1,000 worth of gold, and then he gets back 2,000. The gold went up, but
Yeah, so we're gonna have to look at it the way. At which time, at which point it was considered changed hands, and then he's gonna have to pay for the as it was when it changed hands. Basil says no, it's at the time of it being spent, time that it leaves. We'll have to see what that means as well. There's different opinions in the Gemara. Reb Kiva's opinion is at the time that it was claimed. That's the price that he's going to have to pay. Let's take a look at this Gemara. Starts off with the story, and then we challenge the story with the author, the rabbi in the story, that maybe he holds like Beis Shammai. We'll see in a second. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Haiman de Gazal Chavita de Chamre Mechabri. There was a person that stole a barrel of wine from his friend. Mikara Shavya Zuz. Originally, when he stole it, it was only worth 1 zuz. Hashta Shavya Arba. I guess the barrel aged. No, it's aged wine. No, it's worth 4. It was worth 1 zuz when he took it. Now it's worth 4 zuz. Tavrei Shasya. And he broke it and he drank it. Or he drank it. You don't break it and drink it. You broke it or drank it. Mishalim Arba. He has to pay 4. What's the explanation for that? The explanation is that he could have given it back. Just take the barrel and give it. He stole it, it was only worth 1. Now it's worth 4. But if he wanted, he could just return the barrel.
Should have been his the whole time. The person who stole it.
Yeah, right. So he could really return it to the owner as is. Say here it is, I'm returning it. But instead of doing that, he broke it. So when does he really steal it? Since it was the owner's the whole time, because he could just give it back to him, so it's considered the owner's the whole time. So he stole it when it broke. So if he pays the time at the time of stealing, the value at the time of stealing, so there's 2 times of stealing here. The first one wasn't really the time of stealing because it was still in the domain of the owner. He could always return it to him. So the real stealing was when it broke. So that means he has to pay as it was at 4.
Didn't we learn that there's some kind of a kinyan when a thief takes something?
Yeah.
We learned that it was at the top of
Right. It's Mela. If it broke without him not breaking it on purpose, if it just happened to break, so then the rule is that Mishalim Zuzi pays the original Zuz as it was at the time of the theft. We don't say that there are 2 stages of stealing. We say there was 1 stage of stealing when he originally took it, and that would be the kinyan. And the only thing is he can't return it because it broke. Okay, you can't return it because it broke. Okay, so you have to pay for what you took. Shasa Gzela, the time of theft. That's what we learned before, the time of theft. What we're adding over here is that if he breaks it on purpose, then there's a second time of stealing. It's a new time of stealing because he was considered in his domain the whole time, in the original owners. Yeah. Okay. But it's more than the change. Usually when you change, if any item that's changed, you pay as it was the time of theft, right? But here he actually did it intentionally. So then if there was a change in price, so we say that there's a second theft.
Same thing as the beam. The person had to return the value of the beam, not like the value of the beam when he made the house.
No, over there, but the beam in the house, that was a special thing where we said that he doesn't have to take apart his house, right?
But it changed status, and the value didn't change. It was whatever at the time it was stolen.
Yeah, but over here, he stole the item a second time because he either broke it or drank it. The item was still.
He stole it the second time when he made it into the house.
No, he didn't destroy the beam. The beam is still there.
But we had cases that the stuff was destroyed or he no longer had it, so he had to pay it at the time of stolen. Here they're adding like another.
Yeah.
layer
Okay.
to it. That was when we were learning that it kind of like took two things, make the change, which would be the spare and change the item.
Okay. Let's leave it. I hear. Over here, the Gemara is explaining it that it's as if he stole it at the time that he drank it, since he could have returned it right then, intact. Even though the price changed, whether it went up or down, it doesn't matter. If the item is still there, you can always return it. Let's say it was worth 4 at the beginning, and now it's only worth 1, but you can still return the original item.
Said that, oh, how could the robber or thief make a profit on the thing because he would keep the up value. In this case, he can't keep the up value.
What are you saying, that one?
The concern, like, oh, how does this thief make money on the item and he just returns it? Like, he only returns the amount that it was worth when he stole it. And he did other things with it.
Right.
So the same thing, like when they check the cow, or that he pays 4 times, 5 times at the amount of when it was stolen. Now, when he checked it, the animal could have gone up in value.
He pays 4 or 5 times the price that it was at the time that he stole it. Is that clear? Not at the time that it was when he's not at the.
To me, this whole thing is like an extra layer that we didn't have before.
Okay. Let's see. But you see that there's a difference here between if he breaks it, and according to this, if he breaks it or if it breaks on its own. My timer. The reason is, given the Isa, if the barrel would still be intact, he would be able to return it. That's to consider that he stole it at that moment. And we have a Mishnah, that they pay for it at the time that they stole it. And this is considered when he stole it. Itmar Memela, if it broke naturally, if it broke on its own, Mishalim Zuzah, then he only pays the original price. My timer, he didn't do anything to it. He didn't steal it now. It broke on its own. He stole it before. What do you make him responsible for? He shited the gazla because of when he stole it. He shited the shavia was only worth the zuz when he stole it. Okay. Now that's the statement of Rabbah that he has to pay the higher price. If he breaks it, he pays the original price if it broke on its own. Tanan was taught in our Mishnah, Beisil Laimrim Ksasitza. Beisil say that you pay at the time of it leaving. What does it mean the time of it leaving? It's when it was taken out. So Ilaim Ksasitza Mina Olam. How are you saying that it means the time that it was taken out of the world? It means let's superimpose the case of Rabbah onto the Mishnah. Okay, so we'll say that the case of the Mishnah is the barrel of wine that started with 1 zuz and now it's worth 4 zuz. So now Basil says that you have to pay as it was when it left the world, right? That means when he spent it or when he drank it or broke it. But let's say it got worth less. Let's say it started with 4, now it's only worth 1. Is there anyone that would say that he only has to pay 1? Batanan, we have a Mishnah, you see, and now the Gemara is introducing that even though he stole it again when he used it, but we're not going to let him get away with the lower price. We're gonna, because he actually did an action, we're gonna charge him the higher price. Yeah, maybe that's just a special penalty. So, but would anyone say that he only has to, if it would be the opposite? If it started with 4 and now it's 1, and he drank it, is anyone going to say that he has to pay only the 1? No, he stole a barrel that was worth 4. Everyone's going to say kshasa gzela.
Did they go back to 1 because he drank it, so therefore there's less for me?
No,
So
it's just change in price. Yeah. BBS, sir, let's say it got worth more. Started with 1 and became 4. So, and you have to pay the 4. It says 1 second, Hainu Beishamai. That's what Beishamai says, that you have to pay the extra. It gets worth more. That's what we're understanding Beishamai. The Yilka B'chasav yesterday, you're always going to have to pay the higher price. Elapshita, rather, what it means is, Beisila says Kshas Eitzah, that it means Kshas Eitzah mi Beis Bailim, the time that it left the person's house, which would mean that if it gets worth more, then Beishamai would say you have to pay the higher price. It's now worth 4. And Beisil would say they have to pay what it was at the time when it left the owner's house, which was only 1. So what did Rabbah say? That you have to pay 4. So Lema Rabbah Dam Beishamai comes out that Rabbah's passing like Beishamai. Now that's an obvious problem because we don't want Rabbah to go like Beishamai. Rabbah wouldn't pass like the halacha is always like Beisila. Taisvis asks a question. He says, the top Taisvis over here, why do we have to say that the machlekes in the Mishnah, Beishamai and Beisila, is talking about where the person broke it or drank it? Say the Beishamai and Beisila are talking about when it broke on its own. And over there, if it broke on its own, then you would have to pay the original price. And Rabbah says, Rabbah agrees with that. But Beis Hillel would say the original price, and Rabbah agrees that you pay the original price if it broke on its own. Over here, we're talking about a case that the Mishnah wasn't talking about. Here, we're talking about a case where he broke it on purpose, or he drank it. Yeah. So Taisus answers that if by Itbar Memela, if it broke naturally, Beishamai would agree that you would only have to pay the original price, the lower price. So we can't fit the Mishnah to be that case of where it broke on its own. Anyway, Amalach Rabbah, we had a kasha on Rabbah because it seems like Rabbah passing like Beishamai, the case of the barrel of wine, that he broke it. It was originally worth 1, now it's worth 4. Rabbah says you have to pay 4 after he broke it or drank it. So that seemed to be Beishamai's opinion. So the Rabbah would say, but yes, sir, if it gets worth more, Kuli Amalei Pligi, everyone does not argue, everyone would agree that you have to pay the higher price. Ki Pligi B'chaser, the Machlekes is if it gets worth less. It started at 4 and now it's worth 1. Now, Beis Hillel would say that you have to pay the lower price, what it is worth now, when it broke. You have a question that Kol Gazlanim, everyone pays the original price when you stole it. That would actually be true if it would be theft. By theft, we're gonna change that. There's a difference between theft and what's taking place in our Mishnah is where he's sheleach yad bepikadan. He was given the item to watch and he misappropriates it. So it goes like this. Beishamai say that once he misappropriates it, it doesn't matter if there was a loss or not. It's automatically considered misappropriated. It's considered theft. And so therefore, he would have to pay, we're talking about here, it got worth less. So he has to pay the original price. Even though he didn't cause any loss in it, but it's already considered his, and he has to pay the original price that it belonged to when it was taken.
Misappropriation means
Misappropriation means he used it for himself, even though he was just a watchman. And so it goes like this. It doesn't need a loss, so it's considered misappropriation, and therefore it goes into his domain and he has to pay what it was worth originally, which is the higher price. What is this decrease of value? That was that was his that decrease of value was in his own domain, his own under his own jurisdiction. That's where it decreased in value. He has to pay the original price. Still savri no. If you want to say that it's considered misappropriation, then there has to be an actual loss, and he didn't make any loss. And where did it get worth less? It got worth less in the domain of the original owner. So therefore, he only has to pay the price that it is now because it's not considered. It's not considered a real shlichus yad. Yeah. It seems what's coming out of here is that when the Mishnah says, the shaleach yad bepikadon, the Shammai says, okay, then you have to gonna pay the higher price. Basil says, no, you pay the price that it was originally when you took it from the owner, right? You pay the original price. And the reason for that is because he wasn't a shaleach yad. No, Basil says you pay the later price. Basil says you pay if it got worth less. We're talking about that it got worth less. So Bisham might say that it got worth less in the shomer's house because he was shaleach yad. Basil says that it got worth less in the original owner's house, so he only pays what it is right now. But it turns out that what Basil's really saying is that the heading of the Mishnah was not accurate because he wasn't really shaleach yad. Because this type of misappropriation would, according to Basil, it's only considered misappropriation if he actually made it worth less, if you actually took something from it, which he didn't do yet. Let me see how they. Okay. According to this explanation, the dispute between Bisham and Basil applies only to a shomer. As far as the regular thief is concerned, both agree that if he stole something and destroyed it after its value decreased, he pays what it was worth when he stole it. Okay, but with regard to a shomer, Basil holds that he pays what the deposit was worth when he depleted it. For a shomer is not considered to have misappropriated the deposit until that point.
Discuss this whole thing with the shomer, and like if he would like admit not go to the court process, he would just pay like one time at the time that if they went to court, it would be twice, and then in case of the
No, 1 second. Shomer pays. If a shomer says that I want to pay, so
you have to take an oath that he doesn't have in his possession.
right,
And pay one time.
yeah. At which price would he have to pay?
Therefore, this is a whole
It was-
new layer.
The shomers didn't steal it. He would pay what the price was when he took it, when it was put into his possession.
And it's an oath, saying it wasn't in his possession. So it wouldn't be, so it wouldn't say that.
Okay, fine. Right? Yeah, there's the shomer that wants to pay, and then there's a thief that doesn't have the item anymore that he has to pay. So here we're saying that a thief that doesn't have the item anymore, he pays at what it was at the time when he took the item, the original price. Here we're saying that by shlichus yad, when a shomer is using the item, so then it depends as a machlekes if it's considered that right when he uses it, it automatically goes into his domain, and then if the value changes, then that all of that is his loss if it gets worth less, and he still has to pay the original price. Or according to Beis Hillel, where even if he used the item, but if he himself didn't cause any loss to the item, it just changed in value because of the market price. So then, whose value got worth less? Whose item got worth less? Not the shomer's item, but the original owner, because that wasn't considered like he changed domain just by him using it. So therefore, he pays the lesser price according to Beis Hillel. That's what we're saying right now. Gemara now says, "Alahadam Rava," but Rava says that when it comes to misappropriation, you don't need to cause the item to be devalued, to cause a loss to the item in order for it to be considered shlichus yad, misappropriation. And that would be following Beis Shammai. Lema Rava damar Beis Shammai. You're going to tell me that Rava holds like Beis Shammai? It says it's considered shlichus yad, even if there's no decrease, even if it doesn't cause a loss to the item. And rather, we're going to have to adjust the case. We're going to go back and we're going to say that the machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is not actually about shlichus yad, shlichus or not, because that would mess up a statement that Rava made. So we're going to say that the machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in our Mishnah is if someone uses the item, he borrows it without permission. What's he considered? He borrowed it over here in order to stand on it to get the birds down, the little birds. Beis Shammai savri shayosh lamidas gazanavi. Beis Shammai say that once you borrow it, you're considered a thief. And then now that this item is now worth less, now once it's his, because he's a thief, so it goes into his domain. So then when it gets worth less, whose item got worth less? The thief's item. But he still owes the original price to the owner, which is the higher price. Still says that a borrower is considered a borrower without permission is considered a borrower. It doesn't change hands. He doesn't get responsibility for it just because of that. Problem is, we have a machlekes. This was a machlekes in Bava Basra, but there's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan, and the way the Gemara explains that machlekes is about shayol shlemidas. It's talking about someone that sends his son to a storekeeper with a jug. The storekeeper uses the jug for to measure out the things. So over there it says that according to the Rabbanan, someone that borrows without permission is considered a gazlan. So lema Rava damar Beis Shammai. According to this, you're saying that a borrower without permission is considered a robber. That's Beis Shammai's opinion, and you're going to say that that's the Rabbanan's opinion over there. Probably Rava says that that's the Rabbanan's opinion. That means that that's the halacha. It would be the majority versus Rabbi Yehuda. Halacha b'shvach shel gezela kamiflagi. Rather, over here we're talking about something that we didn't think of before. We were understanding the whole time that what Beis Shammai was saying is that Beis Shammai is going to give you the higher price. That's what we were thinking. Beis Hillel says you're going to have to pay the lower price. And we're talking about when it got worth more or got worth less. Okay. Now the Gemara adjusts that. That's not what we're talking about. Rather, b'shvach shel gezela kamiflagi. We're talking about where there's improvements to the stolen item. Beis Shammai savri. Beis Shammai holds shvach gezela denigzal habe, that those improvements belong to the original owner, and he has to pay those extra improvements. Beis Hillel savri shvach gezela de gazlan habe. Beis Hillel says that no, the robber actually keeps those improvements. But plukta dahani tanai, it's actually a machlekes other tanaim. The Tanya was taught in a braysa, gezel as a rachel, if someone steals a sheep, gazaza v'yalda, shears the wool, and the sheep gave birth. So that's when Beis Shammai said the increase or the decrease. What he's talking about, the increase would be if it became pregnant, that the animal increased in size. Decrease means when he shears the wool, it decreases in size. Mishalim Meisav Eskizisev, that's what he said of Reb Meir. Reb Meir says that you have to pay back not only the original sheep, but also the offspring and also the wool. And that was what Beis Shammai says, that you have to pay the increase and the decrease, which is the wool and the offspring. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you just return the original item, and those other things that came out of it are the thieves to keep. Dekanami, prove it to you, Diktani, because it taught, it says that he gets hit with the increase and decrease. It doesn't say with the increase of value or decrease of value. It says the decrease or increase, which is on the item itself. That's what it looks like. It would have used a different word. There's a zol. Zol means the decrease of value. Here we're not talking about decrease of value. Here we're talking about a decrease in bulk. Yeah. Basil Laimrim Kshasitza and Basil say Kshasitza Shmamina, as it was at the time that it was taken, which was without the wool and without the offspring. Rabbi Kiva Aimer, what time is Shachris nowadays? No. Do they start at 6:30? Okay, so let's leave it over here by Rabbi Kiva Aimer. Okay.
Thank you. Have a great day. Shkach.
Okay, have a good day, everyone.
Okay.